Hey, hey guys, it's Tara here. My dad couldn't join me today, and so hopefully you guys enjoy this interview just as much as if he was doing it. We have Travis here, and you guys can't see Amanda. Amanda was here as well, but Travis is the founder of Meadowlark, and he's going to be chatting with us a little bit about his brewery and his position. Amanda's on the call. She's a friend of ours. She's also represents that brewery, and she lost her voice this weekend at Craft Brew Week. So glad to have both of you. Thank you for being here. First of all, I just want to say congrats on your wins on the Violet Delights in the fruit beer section, and then also in the pale ale section, we had the Badlands. And it appears, I can't tell if it's like listed in order of first, second, third, but it looks like you got first on that one.
Yeah, I think so. That's what Amanda reported to us, and thank you for having us be a part of this. Really fun. The Violet Delight is a newer beer for us. We've been making it less than a year. We use both dark sweet cherry and blueberry concentrate. One of the things, one of the tenets in our breweries, we always use real fruit if we're going to make a fruit beer. No extracts, no essence, nothing derived with glycol or anything like that. So it's actual real fruit that we put into the tanks post fermentation. And what you're left with is, I don't know, natural flavors is kind of a weird term. I think it gets used all over the place, but the flavor that you get out of like a fruit beer from us, we're going to talk about the peach wheat in a little bit. It doesn't have like that candy Jolly Rancher profile. It has kind of a longer draw on the fruit flavor. And it's just something that Tim, our head brewer, brought with him when he signed up with us when we first opened. It was just a tenet that he thought was important, and yeah, I agree.
Is it something you're gonna, do you guys distribute that, or is it only available on keg? I know this isn't what we planned on talking about first, and I wanted to congratulate you on it, but I would like to know if that's something that we're going to be able to have available in this market too.
We will have it available this fall. So for like the last 3 years, I've been planning out this a brewery in Billings. We're expanding. We're going to build a production facility. For the folks watching, you can see the brewery in the background. It may look spacious, but all the things that we try to accomplish in here, we get really crunched on space. We bottle, but you don't see any of those lines back there. We store a lot of those materials off site. The canning line's entirely in an enclosed trailer. We'll unpack, move in, set up, level, do all that kind of stuff every time we do a canning run. It takes us like 6 hours to set that baby up every time, and it only takes us like 4 hours to run. So one of the big things that we wanted to do when we get to Billings is have all that equipment just ready to roll. And when we get down there, then we're going to introduce some of these beers that we've been doing draft only, like Violet Delights or our hazy IPA Magic Global Monkey. We're going to turn the majority of our full season year-round beers into 16-ounce cans. We're going to go from a 12-ounce to 16-ounce format. We're doing a brand refresh. We are still going to use the bottling line for some of the Imperials. I know Bombers are kind of on the way out. They never really hit Montana like they have, in other states. But we have the line. I like Bombers. I think they're great for sharing, because, and ideally those Imperials are beers that you grab a buddy, you grab a friend, and you split it, right? And it becomes more than just a drink. You have, an experience, right? So we'll still utilize that a little bit. But yeah, the Violet Delight, that'll enter in your cans hopefully this fall. And I guess we could segue a little bit into what we're doing down in Billings, if you want me to jump off that.
Yeah, actually, my dad, really quick, my dad was like, well, I wonder what the closest city to Sydney is. Is it Billings?
The closest city, yes. Billings is the closest city. That's our hub for pretty much everything. Yes, we go there. I've gone down and back a lot this spring. It's still 260 miles. The fastest I can get there, and this is about 3.5 hours, no matter, I drive fast, and that's about as fast as I can get there. But yeah, Target, Costco, even going to the movies. We do have a local theater, but yeah, I don't even think it's open right now. So
Okay.
buy clothes, everything. So it's within our division for high school sports. I'm born and raised in Sydney. I did leave for about a decade, and I moved back here to help my folks out. We own the concrete supplier in town, so I moved back when my dad was having some health issues, and then the oil
Mm.
boom hit. This is 2009, 2010 when I moved back, and I don't know. We just got busy with with Ready Mix, and somewhere along the way, my parents have been very instrumental in my brewing career, because they got me my first home brew kit when I was in high school. Mr. Beer,
Oh.
it's like a little plastic brown keg. Yeah, high school, uh, and so they were pretty instrumental in my relationship with making beer. Um, and I worked out on the West Coast. I have an engineering degree, and I worked in Northern California and Oregon and Washington, and of course all great beer states. And every place that I got moved to for a new project, a bridge or a naval station or whatever, I would go hang out at breweries, right? And make friends and offer labor, and just continue to foster that love and care. And then when I moved back here, after a couple of years, my folks were like, "We should open this brewery you keep talking about." And of course, the first thought is, "Well, that's nuts, like we can't do that." And that was that was about 2013. We opened in 2014. That really took about a year and a half of planning too, and find buildings and do all that retrofit that we had to do. So we've been brewing since 2014. We have a full service restaurant out front, lunch and dinner. And so then this next move to Billings is just to enable us to expand what we want to do. We're too big for Sydney to really survive. That's why we distribute across the state. We distribute in both the Dakotas. But all the hampering that we have with the floor space, we need to streamline the process. So Billings is going to be a really big upsize for us. It's a 23,000 square foot building. It's up. We got electricians and plumbers in there right now working. Sheetrock's going up on the walls. So we're getting. You can almost see the finish line, right? It's getting pretty exciting every time I go down there. And it's located out by the zoo, the Montana Zoo, or Pierce RV. It's on the Shiloh exit off the interstate. So we think we're in a pretty good spot. There's a lot of movement heading west out there. Tim and I are both going to move down there and run that facility. We have Matt standing behind me there with his hands on his hips. We've been training Matt now for about a week. He's got some family ties to the Sydney area, but he moved out here from Butte a while back, and we were fortunate enough to find him. So so far we've gotten really lucky, or I should say I've gotten lucky. I was really fortunate in finding Tim, and then we found Amanda, and we found Matt, and I hooked Tim's brother into moving here from Pennsylvania as well. So we got Tim's brother running our kitchen. So we're blessed with good people, which in Sydney, we just don't have that big of a employment pool to draw from.
Yeah. Do you also think that maybe you're moving to Billings because like we saw that on the annual rainfall in Sydney is like 14.2 inches. Maybe you're going to run out of water to brew beer, or?
Oh no, nothing like that. No, we live in an irrigated river valley, so we have the Yellowstone going right by us. And we're a huge crop growing region. We have access to water in plentiful quantities, so that's not an issue. No, number one is the space. We need more of it.
I'm just messing around with you because it's pretty dry out there, isn't it? Like a desert kind of.
Yeah, it is right now. I have the back door closed, and you can't tell, but I am warm. It's 93 degrees. It feels like a desert right now. Last week we had a couple tornadoes, so I'll take.
Oh my gosh!
Tornado.
Yeah.
But yeah, population, 110,000 people live in Billings. You got communities that go there for everything that I already mentioned, shopping or whatever, right? Sports. And so we want to have access to those. We want to have access to those tourists, be on the interstate, to be more economical by bringing in our supplies and taking them out. One downside is we are going to move a little bit further away from our barley growers. We have a really good relationship with our malter, two-track malting. They're over in Bismarck, but one of the family farms is just in Belfield, and that's like an hour and a half away from us. So we were out there a couple of weeks walking around in the barley field. We're still going to continue to use them. We're going to also start using some of the other local craft maltsters. But that's an important part of what we want to do too, is really try to make, you know, that circle of currency, right? Buy locally, sell locally, the money stays in circulation. It's not getting shipped out of state or to some foreign conglomerate, right? So we're excited about that too. And then
will you still have a restaurant and like where we can come have a drink there too? Or?
Oh yeah. We'll about 6,000 square feet of the 23,000 square feet will be for public food. We'll have a full-size kitchen there, full menu, and it has seating for about 350 people, I think. Plus a patio.
Sounds like a fun place.
Yeah, and in addition to brewing, we're gonna put our hat in the ring for distillation. This will be another fun part for us to start experimenting with. And overall, a big part of that distillation plan is to get into RTDs, ready to drink cocktails. So we're still gonna have a 12-ounce format, but it's gonna be all spirit based. So an example, we have one called the Bushwood Club Cooler, and so it's a reference to like Caddyshack, the golf course in Bushwood, and it'll be a John Daly, so like an Arnie, but you know,
that's
John
awesome.
Daly used to drink. I don't know if he drinks anymore, but
well,
that's one of the first ones coming out.
That's awesome. I'm so excited for you guys. I'm excited to. I don't know if I'll make it that far with running two businesses and having a 2-year-old right now, but someday we hope to visit all the breweries. And I know Meadowlark's been a favorite of a couple of our staff members here. So
that's great to hear.
Yeah, we've always we've carried you for a long time at both locations, and we just really appreciate what you're doing. Can you tell me a little bit about the name Meadowlark? Why did you name it that? In Great Falls, we're big on Meadowlark, so.
Well, that's really easy for me. Growing up around here, you know, you go out to the ranch, especially in the early spring, right? It's so devoid of life out here in the wintertime. Like you're just praying for -20 to go away, and then when it finally comes, it's fast, right? It's quick. But one of the first signs that I always saw as a kid was the Meadowlark out there on a post, on barbed wire, you know, just going to town, just singing its song. And you know, they're kind of drab looking, but they got like that really nice bright yellow patch. They're super loud, and it was just always something that I always looked for. You know, I would look for like they're ground dwellers, right, or ground nesters. So as a kid, I would go, you know, try to find their nest. And so I thought, you know, come up with brewery names. Even that many years ago, it seemed like there's no names left, and I wanted something that would really have some kind of emotional meaning to the people that we're primarily serving beer to, which is Montanans, right? Well, come to find out, the Meadowlark is the state bird, second only to the cardinal. So North Dakota, Oregon, Wyoming, Nebraska, and I thought, well, how cool is that? Like people already recognize it as kind of a symbol for our area, right? Like flyover country. Like we don't think it's flyover country. This is where we live. This is our home. And so I wanted that. I was hoping that emotional, you know, feeling would translate, right? And so that's how we got the Meadowlark. I was surprised nobody else had it in the state. A lot of great names in the state, but I don't know, it just kind of fits us. And I'm I've never doubted using it now. I think it's great.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about that on past calls, that the names for even beers are just getting, it has to be harder and harder to name beers because they're just, yeah, it must just be
Yeah,
crazy.
that's the funnest.
But,
That's actually the funnest part of being a brewer, is trying to find a good name. And when you're at the end of the canning line and you're smacking pack decks on 600 cases, your mind has all kinds of ways to go. And so yeah, we have a lot of really fun names, good artwork to go with them. And Tim and I collaborate all the time about which direction should we go with this, let's make it fun, what's in the zeitgeist of today, right? So yeah, we're actually going to make a seltzer. We have it in the tank right now. We're going to make two. And so we came up with this name, Water Cooler.
Oh,
I was like, oh, that's not bad.
That's
not bad.
awesome.
Water Cooler, right? We have a big whiteboard, so we start stuff on a whiteboard, and as you're working, you come by and go, okay, and you write something else on the whiteboard, and you start to get this spider chain of ideas. And so we're like, oh, water cooler, okay, be a whole lot cooler if you did. And I was like, that's it. That's the way to do it right there. And it sometimes it's dumb. Like, that's really it, what you're gonna call it? Like, yeah, because people are gonna remember it. Teddy Roosevelt, American Badass. Like, who names a beer that? And it was a joke. It was Tim had gone over to Medora, North Dakota. They're big on Teddy because Teddy had a ranch over there. Yeah, I've been reading about Teddy. He was a real badass. We should name a beer that. And I was like, no, absolutely not. That's terrible. We won't even get approval. And yeah, you can write badass on the label and get federal approval. No problem.
That's awesome.
And
well, now that, I guess, since we're kind of segueing into that and the names of beers, let's talk about this one.
That was one of the first. The three beers that we have in cans were the first three beers that we ever brewed. We've continuously tweaked recipes, made improvements. The last 12 months, we've really been focusing on water chemistry. We have pretty hard water out here. So we've always used a softener and a carbon block and reverse osmosis. So that gives us a good flat line, a good base, but it doesn't really contribute some of those aspects, those subtle aspects to beer, like say where those styles originated from, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, cream ale is an American style, but if you were to talk about the Old West, which we're going to try next, it's a Scotch ale. So we've always used things like the Edinburgh yeast strain, to try to be as close to the origins of that beer as possible. But then we started looking at water chemistry in the last year and then trying to duplicate, what's the water profile where that beer was traditionally brewed, right? And so now we've come all that far. So we've always looked at yeast. Now we're going with local barley for that component of the ingredients. We've bought hops in Montana since we've opened, and now we're altering our water profile to try to meet some of those standards for where that beer originated from. But Harvester is an American cream ale, so that's one of the, I think there's two native styles to the U.S., and steam beer is the other. So Harvester is a cream ale. We use a little bit of flaked oats in it, a little bit of flaked corn, so you might pick up on some of that profile. Mm-hmm. Light, easy drinking. Really, that was our intro beer, right? That's what we knew that we needed to produce for our locals to move them. Some easy transition from, well, it's Busch Light now, but when we opened it, it was Bud Light, right? Yeah. And so we needed that easy transition, and Harvester fits that. It's got a little pickup on it. That's because I have a 1957 International Harvester. That was my grandfather's first business vehicle, first pickup that he bought for one of his businesses he started, and it became like a high school vehicle for my uncles, and then it sat out on our farm for like 20 years, and my dad gave it away when I was working as an engineer, and I had to track it down and buy it back. So I have it back, and so that's the 57. The yellow color on the can is actually a Arapaho yellow, which is from the 1957 paint code.
Oh, wow.
So
Lots of meaning behind them for sure.
we spend a lot of time thinking about stuff. But yeah, that's how we came about. It's our best seller. We always have a tank brewing of harvester, either a 15 or a 30. The brew house here is a 15 barrel, 2-vessel brew house.
Mm.
We have 5 15 barrel fermenters and 2 30s, and then 2 15 barrel bright tanks. And then as far as other equipment, yeah, bottling line, caddy line. We also employ a centrifugal separator to aid in filtration. For the majority of our beers, we filter them. That's why they're crystal clear. If something like harvester comes through, we use a plate and frame here. Although we do have this nice big tangential filter that, of course, is sitting in the corner right now. But that's a cross flow ceramic membrane filter. Easiest way to describe it is RO for beer. But when I turn that baby on, we get 30 barrels of harvester through it without any other filtration in like 28 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Like that's like where previously setting up the centrifuge, setting up the filter, cleaning tanks in between would take us, 5 or 6 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So
Cool.
we're expanding on our technology for Billings. We have it down here so that we can kind of test run, figure stuff out, so we have less of a learning curve, when we unpack all this new equipment down in Billings, because we're expanding not only our tank size, everything will be 30 barrels down there, 30 barrel, 3-vessel brew house. But we're getting a much larger centrifuge. The tangential filter is giant. And so we'll have 11 30 barrel fermenters down there, 3 bright tanks, and then the 5,000 liter still, which 5,000 liters is about 42 barrels. For people that know that struggle between metric and barrels like I do.
Yeah, there's a good variety of people on here, and some people will know what you're talking about. I'm a wine girl and still learning about beer, so I appreciate the information.
Yeah, so 15 barrel is 31 gallons. So
cool. How about this one?
Peach wheat.
Peach wheat.
The peach wheat, another one that we've been brewing for a long time. Interestingly enough, it's not just peach in there. There's also mango, which you can see on the label. So some people, if they read the label carefully, we state all of our added ingredients on there. So it says wheat ale brewed with peaches and mango, I think, on the label. So we've been brewing that for a long time. The first time we brewed it, we had our peach concentrate in the freezer ready to go, added it to the beer. Yeah, it's okay, it's good, right? It's about 40% wheat in that beer, and the rest is a regular base malt, which is a Pilsen base malt. And we're like, yeah, it's all right. And we're like, what else can we do? And we had 2 buckets of mango concentrate, 5-gallon buckets, because we were going to do a mango habanero beer, which we've still not done, although I really want to.
I would love that.
And we're like, well, let's just try this out, see what it does. And it was like just the right balance. So we get a lot of comments of too sweet, not sweet enough. But really, the profile of that fruit, I think, is like a good base note, right? Like it's just steady throughout. Especially on a day like today when it's above 90, there's that tartness from the peach. There's a little bit of sweetness. The mango kind of comes through on the back end. It's low ABV. It's 4.5%, I think. So a day like today, like that thing is like, I think really a great, quench thirster. It'd be a burner out here.
Yeah, it'd be a really good mimosa or a beer mosa too. I don't know if you guys do any cocktails there with beers or.
Well, we've been fighting with the state for, what are we on, 8 months? Since October, I've been trying to get our beer and wine license in here. It's been fun. Anybody doesn't know about licensing in the state, read up on it. So the next time we have legislation in 2 years, you can tell your local legislator to change our alcohol laws because they are ridiculous.
Yes.
So hopefully we'll get our wine license back and we can do some of those, you know, kind of cocktails or whatever.
Cocktails,
But
yeah.
but yeah, peach is great for this time of year. Eastern Montana really likes it, and we get asked all the time, why don't you make it all year round? But peach wheat in January is just not as good as a peach wheat in June this year. You know, typically I say July, but this year
Something to look forward to, I think. So
right,
just like
right.
the Meadowlark, right?
Right. Yeah. If it was there all the time, it wouldn't be any fun. So
Yeah. Cool. Well, we'll move on to Old Gus. I do like it. And I if I'm understanding you correctly, so you have food there and you
yes,
can sell them beer while they're there too. Do you do
yes.
any recommended pairings like on your menu? We always, with wine, we always talk about pairing things, but is there something special on the menu with any of the wine beers we're going to try as we go through?
Oh, I mean, we've done various things over the years. So prior to October, I had rented the restaurant space out to a hospitality group for like 5 years, because when we opened, we had never had any restaurant experience. So probably not the best idea to open both a brewery and a restaurant that ran like coffee in the morning too. Well, you know, so we had espresso and breakfast and lunch and dinner, and I was trying to get the brewery going, and I would get to work like at 6 in the morning and get home at, you know, like 11 o'clock at night. And so a local hospitality group wanted help building their brewery and wanted to know if I could consult for them. And I was like, I had no time. So long story short, they rented space for me for about 5 years. We got it back in October. But we've always tried to do a little bit of pairing with our food or tasting notes, right? Like, might work really well with this, or we incorporated the beer into some of the food. We had a wee heavy poutine. We're going to talk about the Old Gus next, which is a Scotch ale wee heavy. And so we used the wee heavy poutine as a platform. We used the Scotch ale as part of the gravy, or we braised the meat in it. We would do a good beer braise with it. We've made ice cream with beer, all kinds of ice cream, stouts, IPAs. The Fungus Shui, which we'll talk about in a minute, made the best ice cream. It tasted like a maple nut bar ice cream. It was pralines and cream. It was amazing. But right now we're not really we don't really have like a mini thing and then it says try with this. That is something that we want to explore a little bit more when we get down to Billings. But we've also done beer tasting events here, cheese tasting, cheese pairing, which is always really fun. We have an upstairs room for private events. We can get about 75 people in there, and we've done 3 or 4 like pretty deep dives into like eating a lot of cheese and drinking a lot of beer.
Nice.
But that I think is the funnest.
Yeah.
That's the one for me.
Yeah. No, we love doing that kind of stuff. And here's Old Gus. Old Gus. Is that a dog you had, or? He was
my wife and I's first dog. He was a Neapolitan Mastiff, big, slobbery, jowly, about 140 pounds. Real sweetheart. And we only had him for like 3 or 4 years. He had bad genetics with a lot of this large breeds too. But when we were coming up with the names of the Scotch ale, being one of the first beers that we brewed, we were kind of struggling with all the Scottish connotations that were already out there, tilt lister, or, you know, something with big sights or something like that. And I was like, it just doesn't feel like us. We're Scandinavian out here. We don't have a lot of Scots. I was like, how about Old Gus? And it just seemed to work. So, yeah, we've been brewing that beer since 2014 at 7%. Using that Edinburgh yeast strain. You have a little bit of Munich malt in there for color. Has some nice fruity esters, right? Some residual sugars. That yeast doesn't attenuate fully out. So it's not a dry beer. It's a little sweet. And it does pair well with roasted meats or kind of darker foods, right? So roasted meat steaks or broth, stuff like that. It's really fun to cook with. But it's fairly easy to drink, really. Common complaint out front is that it's too easy to drink because it's smooth, but it's high ABV.
Yeah.
And for our locals that aren't used to drinking a beer that's twice the ABV, they struggle sometimes, right?
Yes. I love a Scottish ale. It's one of my favorites.
And the only thing that we don't use in that might be non-traditional would be smoked malt. We don't employ any smoked malt in it. So whether or not that's a detriment, I really like it how it is. I look forward to the day when we can do a Roush beer. Another good reason for getting down to Billings is we'll have all these people that we can kind of step up our game on experimentation. And so Billings will be production, but we're gonna have this whole brewery here that will just kind of be our playground.
Yeah.
And just do fun stuff, and it'll make it on draft in Billings and here in Sydney. Will it make it out into the open market? Maybe, but it might be people like yourself that are looking for something interesting, or we have a relationship like we're gonna go on my short call list now. Like, we got something cool, you want to try it?
No, I would love that. And that's one of the, I'm going to talk about the perks of Beer Club later, but one of the perks is getting exclusivity to things. Just, we love that. So I know we have one other brewery that he's actually a member who owns Golden Triangle in Fort Benton, and he's coming out with something. And I was like, give it to me exclusive so we can just make sure to be able to give it to your customers here in Great Falls. So we love that. So anything you would be willing to try us out on, we'd be up for it, and we could probably get you feedback and stuff too. So
that would be great.
So
we love those kind of relationships.
We're moving on to Badlands. I was saying that this got first place in the one of the categories at the brewery or the Brew Fest this weekend. So good job, and excited to have it in our club. Obviously, when we picked it for the club, we didn't know it was going to be that. So what an honor and a treat to have for our members. So.
Yeah. The Badlands, we're right on that cusp of where the prairie starts to roll. Once you get across the river here, across the Yellowstone, we're very short distance from North Dakota, 5 miles. But it's really rugged to the east of us. And so that, I think it says on there, there's the dichotomy of ruggedness and beauty. And if you've ever kind of walked out in the Badlands, I mean, in Great Falls, you're kind of akin to that, right? You got some nice areas that they're not really like treed, but they have their own kind of mystique and beauty with the landscape. And so that Badlands is kind of that same way. There's the maltiness, there's the sharp points of the hops. And this is a beer that we've really worked hard on the water chemistry lately, and actually kind of softening some of the bitterness, but trying to really elevate the floral, the citrus out of the hop profile. It is a dry hop beer. Most of our IPAs all of our IPAs are dry hop. And for the longest time, I think it says on the can like unfiltered, and we would get calls about this is not clear. It's you can't see through the glass. And we're like, well, yeah, it's unfiltered. And so I don't know. We didn't know it, but we were making like a version of a hazy way back when. Just so you know, I'm getting like beeps on these headphones. I don't know if I'm running out of battery, but if you can't hear me, just let me know.
Okay.
I think it's my headphones. And so the Badlands uses a blend of hops called Falconer's Flight, which is like a proprietary blend that has like a scholarship attached to it. So it's like Sorachi Ace, Citra, Simcoe, and there's a fourth one that I can't think of. So high on citrus, a little bit of that danky resinous profile from the Simcoe, and this last version of Falconer's this last year that we were using out of right now, I think it's using a little bit more Simcoe than we've had before, which is a profile that I really like. I like Simcoe. I like kind of that cannabis profile. It is what it is, right?
No, I love it. I think this is a great, well-balanced IPA. It's not too bitter, like you said, and I'm loving it.
Yeah. We used to call it an extra pale ale. I don't know what can you have, if it says India Pale Ale or extra pale.
Yeah, it says Indian Pale Ale, and I think the category it was in, it was actually pale ale. So
we changed it when we first brewed it. We called it a Yeah, Brandon, thanks. It was more malt heavy when we first started brewing it, and we didn't want to go full blown IPA with it just because we didn't think we had the clients to serve that kind of beer here. But over the years, recipes evolve, and so it's more hop forward now. And so we changed the label to be IPA rather than extra pale ale. But it was already pretty close to an IPA.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Cool. Well, I'm excited to try this next one.
All right, so Feng Shui, that's probably one of the most unique ones that we make.
Yes.
It's a gold medal winner at GABF 2019 in the experimental beer category. And the reason we entered in experimental is because we're using a non-traditional ingredient, which is handicap mushrooms. So they're a foraged mushroom. They can be cultivated. I have about 3 growers or not growers, foragers that I call, 3 companies out in Oregon that are able to supply us with enough mushrooms to, make the beer that we need to make. And we get it dried, and so we're using it kind of very similar to how we use hops during the brewing process. So we add some during the kettle, just like a hop addition, and then we add the remainder of what we use totally in the fermenter as a dry shroom addition, dry hop addition, dry shroom addition. But they're so potent. When you get them, you can smell maple through the plastic, and they're like vacuum sealed bags, and you can still smell it. And so the candy cap is unique, is that it has the same chemical compound found in maple syrup. And as that beer gets warm, if you were to let that beer get warm to like 50, 55 degrees, you'll actually even get like a little bit of a curry note out of it. And we found that the further south that the foragers are, the more curry notes we get out of it. So the further north provides more of that maple note. We do have a little bit of local honey from Big Sky Apiary, which is just about 8 miles down the road from us. But we use the honey in the kettle, and it's a little bit more for body. But the base style is really just kind of a golden ale. It's using base malts, little honey, and then the mushrooms are really the star. And I had this weird idea of doing an oyster stout, but using oyster mushrooms. And I thought about it in the middle of the night. I wrote it down. I came to work all excited the next day. Tim, oyster stout. What are you thinking? And he was like, no, it's okay. And I was like, no, it's a good idea. And he's like, no, stouts are too hard to sell. And he's like, I don't know, let me get on Dr. Google. So he gets on Dr. Google, and you ever heard of a candy cap? Of course not. I've never heard of a candy cap. And so we're conceptualizing this thing, right? My mom walks in the back door, and she's like, well, you shouldn't do a stout. You should make it light. That's one less barrier for people to get through. If it's a stout, they're going to have to like stouts to start with. I was like, oh, okay, that's a good idea. And then we had the honey in the grain room, and I was like, let's throw some honey in there. That'll be fun. And so, like a lot of things, we just, what do we have? What can we do? Would this work? The first year we made it, I was scared to death. We spent like $600 on mushrooms. I was like, I don't know if this is gonna work. 15 barrels of mushroom beer. What are we gonna do with it all?
Yeah.
No, people responded really favorably. I mean, not everybody likes it. I think it's super unique. It's using an ingredient that you don't commonly think of being in beer. And then once you try it, you're like, well, it doesn't taste like mushrooms. I had a totally different idea of what this is going to taste like. And that's really the fun part. I really wish that we could talk to everybody like what we're doing right now and kind of explain what it is. Because somebody buying off the shelf, what they're going to taste to their lips, they're going to be like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Right. And without the backstory. But no, that's part of the process. Like we want people to, we want people to be amazed, to be enlightened. What we do here is supposed to be fun, right? And it is every day, right? Well, some days are not fun, right?
Right.
But I enjoy coming to work every day, right? And part of the reason is I get to talk to people, I get to explain what we do. I'm moving around, I have to do my computer work, and I get up and I get to go do brewery work. It's a nice blend for me. But a big part of it is sharing what we love to do. what we're here for, and not everybody has that opportunity. So we're blessed, right?
Yeah.
This is what I made. Here, here's an easy 12 ounces. This is what I do for a living. That's hard to do if, in my previous career. I mean, every time we go across one of those bridges that I built in California, I'm like, here it is, kids. They're like, I know, Dad, it's the bridge. Like, they don't care, right?
No, yeah.
But I could share beer with people, and then most people are like, "Oh, that's really cool. You make beer, right?" And,
Yeah.
I'm a highlight at family reunions for sure.
Absolutely. I can relate to that, where my dad and I always, of course, bring the wine and the beer. So I can totally relate.
Right.
But
And all
what
the
is
knowledge, right?
Since you are a family business, like my mom cleans here, and my dad, I don't really know what he does. Since he's not here right now, I can say that. Yeah, he drinks a little wine. Amanda's making that joke. No, he does a lot. He's the creative guy and whatnot, and really draws the people in. But what do your parents, do they get involved at all, or?
Oh yeah. So they are financial investors in it, right? Because when I moved here, I was 29 years old, right? So financially, they're a big part of it, but also there's a lot of inspiration there. I talked about how they kind of got me into brewing to start with.
Yeah.
But all along the way, they are one of those, voices in my ear of, oh, what do you think about this? Or have you tried this? My dad's here like twice a day, right? So he's turning 70 here within a month. He works like 6 or 7 days a week, but if I don't see him like at least once a day, I'm kind of like, is he in a hole somewhere? Did something happen? We had a sunshade that tore apart on the patio, and my mom sewed it. She's a heck of a sewer. She used to work in the coffee shop when we were running coffee. Me and Dad have been working down on the construction site in Billings. Him running the excavator, me running the loader. So yeah, they're very part of it. The beer I'm drinking is actually our Tripel. I grabbed a big glass. This is a wheat glass, if anybody wants to know. This is a wheat style specific glass, but I'm drinking Orion out of it because it's hot, and I knew I'd be back here for a while. But a Tripel was a beer that they wanted to know if we could brew. They had done a couple of beer cycling trips in Belgium where they biked like 250 miles, and they would stop at monasteries and old bars and stuff and breweries. And come to find out, Belgium grows sugar beets, and that's our cash crop here is sugar beets. And one of the styles that, of course, comes out of Belgium is Tripel. So we have a beer called Orion. We're actually going to change the name of it. We were doing this whole Constellation series, and they were all Belgian. And we're going to change the name of it to something with tandem bike, tandem. I have it written down. But to highlight my parents' bicycling trip in Belgium. So we're stealing a little bit from Kim Jordan and her husband with bicycles in Belgium, but our story is also authentic. So we're going to change the Orion. That's my dad's favorite, the Tripel. We brew it. Actually, we pretty much brew that year round now. So that is a 9% Tripel, which actually kind of tips it over into the quad. But we use local beet sugar in it. I go right down to the beet factory and up to the loading dock in my pickup and load up the sugar. And we use the Belgian yeast strain. And yeah, so they are a big influence.
Great. Well, that's awesome. I'm so happy that they get to be a part of it with you and you with them, of course. But thanks for sharing your story with us. I have somebody here. I didn't know when to text her. Excuse me. We, in celebration of Craft Brew Week and the business Vintage Cellars that we purchased last year has now been in business for 21 years. And so we did a big celebration, and we were giving away a year's worth of beer club, and we entered our current beer club members into it. They didn't know that. They might have seen the Facebook post that we were giving it away, but I wanted to just, I think it's thank you for, being with us, and we just wanted to involve you guys as well. And so we're going to do that drawing really quick, and then I have one other question for you. And and then
All
we'll
right,
let you go.
I'll
So
reach in.
yeah, reach in. There it is.
There's my hand.
That was almost
Perfect. Okay.
Oh, and actually a beer club member won, Greg Bergstad. So
All right, Craig.
Greg, you get a free year's
great.
worth of beer club starting next month. So very exciting. So thank you for being a members and whatnot. I was drinking out of it's hard to get out of our new glasses, vintage solar glasses. You each get one of these this month too. So just as a thank you for the last 6 months of being members and whatnot. And Travis, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it so much. We're definitely we'll share this with our beer club first, and then we will have it on our YouTube and we'll have it on our Facebook and stuff. So I like what you said, just to go back to being able to talk about things like, I mean, I appreciate hearing about feng shui, because the more you know about a beer, it's easier for us to sell. And so I love having this video to be able to share with even future customers, and they'll be able to see it on our website and stuff too. So
yeah, it's been my pleasure, Tara. Thank you for having us on here. And I love telling the story about, where we come up with these names and the story behind the beer. I mean, every beer really has its own journey. So being able to present that to people, I'm stoked. I was glad to do this.
Yeah, and I hope some of them make it out there, and I guess they'll just let you know if they're a beer club member, and maybe look at, a little tour or something. And
sure, absolutely.
It's a ways away, like you said, 5 miles away from the border, which I forget. And I've been there once, and I actually do have some friends there, the Hoversons.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So when I was growing up, I had a friend named Amber. So I've never made it there though, but I do still keep in touch with her.
Yeah.
So
people
anyway,
want to travel. There's a brewery circuit. You can make it.
Yep.
You can come here, and we'll be closer in Billings. And the next time in Great Falls, I'm coming to visit for sure.
Yes. Come on by. We'd love to do something with you anytime you're coming up here. We definitely do a beer tasting or something. So you just let us know.
That'd be great.
Cool.
Wonderful.
All right. Well, you have a good night. And thanks, Amanda. We'll talk to you guys later.
All right. Thanks, Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.